Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math in restaurants. There's a lot of math in food, there's a lot of math in cooking, and there's a lot of math in restaurants. So I'm going to come at it from a couple different angles. I want to come at it from the consumer side first, and let that bleed over into the restaurant owner slash worker side of things. All right, and yeah, it should be fun. Okay, so on the consumer side of things, right? Like, there's so many factors that you gotta consider when you're dealing with a restaurant. For starters, price, right? That's a good way to kick it off. You're dealing with money. There's so much math and money and keeping track of that. When you decide that you want to go out, like let's say for dinner to start with, there's a lot that you have to consider, right? So you consider the price of whatever you're going to get. You have to consider your budget, where you're at with things. Can you afford to go out? And if you're going out, can you afford something quick or something fancy? What's it going to be, right? What are your needs at that moment, or what can you afford to do? So you have to consider that to start. And when you get to said restaurant, assuming that you are going out, you have to consider, where's your cutoff? So, you're still considering the budget, and when you go to restaurants, they're going to be trying to get you to buy certain things. Sometimes abrasively, sometimes very subtly. But you have to be prepared for that. So not only are you considering price in this, you're also considering, nutrition. Well, or I hope you're considering nutrition, but that's up to you. But the idea is, like, if you are considering nutrition, how many calories does this dish or that dish have? How much fat? How much cholesterol? How much sugar? How much sodium? A lot of places are going to be putting up nutritional values, partially for legal reasons, but also keep you well informed, because no one wants liability. Which in retrospect, that sounds redundant. If they're doing it for legal reasons, chances are they're doing it for liability reasons. But my point is, you can consider nutrition if you would like, right? And not only that, it's like, if you're going somewhere, it's like, are you driving? If you're driving, you have to consider the amount of gas that you're using. You're considering the time that you're going there, and you're considering the time that you're waiting in line. But if you order ahead of time, that's less of an issue. But you can take that into account. Either way, whether you're ordering ahead of time or waiting in line, you are using math. You're considering time, you're considering money, right? And you could also get delivery, right? And if you're going to get delivery, then you gotta consider tip. You gotta consider delivery fees, right? And you're using math, whether you realize it or not. Even if you're thinking about it in a small way, it's still there. And even if you're not writing it down, it's still there. All right. So as a consumer, you're doing a lot of math, even if you don't feel like you are when you're going to a restaurant or you're getting food from a restaurant. You know, for all the reasons that I mentioned and more. And then on the worker side or owner side, there's a lot of math to consider. If you're a worker, right, and you're going into the restaurant business, you're considering, like, what you're getting paid, potential tips. There's math in that. And since you're getting paid, you're considering what's being taken out. And if you're at a place, if you're full time, are there benefits? Or in some places, you might be part time and there may be benefits. So you're considering all that. You're keeping track of all that, and there's math in it. And then that's not all, right? Like, you have different positions that all require math in some form or another, right? If you're serving someone, there's math in that, right? You're keeping track of their order. You're being coordinated as you get things out to them. You're doing a lot of math very quickly. If you're a cashier, you're doing a whole bunch of math, right? You're keeping track of orders and you're counting money. And if you're staying late, you're counting that out. If you're opening, you're still counting to make sure everything's there. And you have some starting point that you might have for the register. And it varies place to place. But I've been places where, like, maybe they have 200 to start, and that's where you want to end, and you deposit the rest. But you got to keep track of all that. And there's a lot of math in that. And then if you're cleaning, there's a lot of math in that. Because you want to be careful with your material. You want to go around cleaning, and there's like a lot of math in that, in the way that you're cleaning, whether you're being deliberately precise with it, or you're just going along, right? There's math in it either way. And then the idea is like, if you're cooking, there's a lot of math in that, right? Because you're measuring things out, you're considering the temperature, you're considering your product, you're trying not to waste product, you're trying to like be as precise as you can in some of these situations. And there's a lot of math that goes into cooking. And for the record, like I'll put some links to some videos that I've done recently and some in the past that pertain to food. um, but yeah, so that's one thing, right? If you're a worker or you're an owner, and that's just, or a manager, right? There's layers to both of those, right? Because if you're a manager, right, you have a lot to consider, because you're determining shifts, you're uh, going in between your employees and the larger franchise as a whole, and there's a lot of math and how that like all works. And whether you're a manager or someone who's working under that manager, you have your schedule to consider, right? And with that schedule, you have your work, you have school potentially, and if it's not work and school that you have to worry about, it's something else. And no matter how you look at it, you are budgeting your time, and that's something that has a lot of math in it. And then if you're an owner, there's layers to that too, because like maybe you own a franchise, or maybe you own the restaurant as a whole. Okay, that came out in a way I didn't want to. So basically, maybe you could be like a franchise owner in the sense that, hey, you own this particular restaurant, but you could be an owner of the franchise as a whole. Is that, if that makes sense? It made more sense in my head. But my whole thing is like, if you are like a big company, like let's say McDonald's, for instance, then you're definitely doing a lot of math. And speaking of McDonald's, if you didn't know, they are very much in the real estate game, and they make a lot of money that way, and that's crazy to me. But there's math in that too. But the whole thing is like, right, like so they have, McDonald's has all their restaurants. They're in real estate. They're probably in a lot of other things too, and there's math in all the layers to it. Um, but with all the things that I mentioned, I hope that you walk away with it from this, realizing that there's a lot of math in restaurants, whether you are a consumer or someone who works there, whether it be a manager, a cashier, a cook, all of that. There's math in those positions, right? There's math in being a consumer. There's math in these companies. There's math all over the place. And here's the thing, right? We all gotta eat. And when we eat, there's a lot of math in the chemistry and biology involved in that process. Like just math all over the place. Math. It's been a long day. A very long day. With that in mind, I'm gonna call this one. I'm gonna bring it to a close. I'll see you in the next one. Professor Prime out.